There used to be times with England and Australia where it was constant. It was game face on in the lift, in the hotel. The day before a game, it was, oh, we've both got the gym at the same time. Right, I'm putting some more weight on today.
Tammy, I'm so happy to have you on. I want to talk to you about all the various different forms of cricket that we can possibly imagine. There are so many different formats out there right now, but I want to dive back to your defining moment first before we push forward. So when asked what you're defining, I feel ridiculous asking you this because I think I know the answer, but when asked what is the moment that sort of changed everything, what's the answer?
Yeah, I think for me it's winning the World Cup in 2017, playing in front of a sold out stadium at Lord's in London, and then the icing on the cake was being named player of the tournament. And I think if I'd have gone back maybe even 2 years before that, that would have been a bit of a complete dream that was never going to happen. I was very much on the periphery of the England squad, couldn't score a run. Those people that know cricket, I was averaging about 15, which as a batter is, well, not worth having a contract pretty much. So for 2 years later to kind of be, on top of the world, winning a World Cup with my teammates, and supposedly being nominated the best player of that tournament was just unbelievable, really.
So what changed? What led you to that moment that was so different from what had been going on 2 years prior, do you think?
Yeah, well, it kind of took quite a long time. So I made my England debut when I was 18. And back then, you basically had England and then you had amateur cricket. And well, actually, England was amateur. We got Sports England funding, but I got put on it and it was about £150 a month or something like that. So it didn't pay for a lot. And I went to uni and all of those kind of things. But the standard was such a big jump. And I did quite well for my county, Kent, but got kind of plucked out of obscurity, really. And just, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to play international cricket. I didn't really know what it took. But I kind of got to look at it. I realised, right, I need to go away and get better. Got dropped not long after that, a couple of months later. Had another year outside the team and basically had this cycle where I'd do really well for Kent, England under-21s, England Academy. I'd do really well there, but then get picked back in the England team and fail again and keep failing and failing and failing. And it got to the point, I think I played in the Ashes, which is England-Australia, for those that don't know cricket too well. It's kind of outside of World Cups, it's kind of the one thing you really judge yourself on is how you go in the Ashes. And I made my Test match debut in 2013. Didn't do very well. I think I got one run and then got out again. Played the first ODI at Lord's. And while I was batting, I just remember thinking, if I don't win this game from this situation we're in, which wasn't a great situation, I'm going to get dropped again. And lo and behold, I got out. Obviously didn't win the game for us, and had a really tough time afterwards. I went and found a quiet place in the pavilion, cried some tears to myself, and our assistant coach at the time, a guy called Carl Crowe, came out and he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I'm just not good enough at this. Shall I just give up? Shall I walk away? Like, this isn't fun. I think I'm good enough, but I can't do it on the international stage." And we kind of had a real period of time where he was like, right, go away and work out if you do want to keep going. And if you do want to keep going, what is it that's holding you back? Like, why is it you can score all these runs for Kent, all these runs for England Academy, but what is it when you make that step up? And we almost made a bit of a game plan and came up with that like big scary goal. Like, what is that big scary goal? And at the time I was batting at number 6 and obviously not doing well, as I said. And I said I wanted to be the best opening batter in the world. And everything became, right, well, is doing that going to make you the best opening batter in the world? Is doing that going to get you there? And it took quite a long time. So
did you go back to really focusing on the small stuff? Like once you decided that was the goal, that you wanted to be the best batter, did you go back to, right, what's going to get me there in incremental bits as opposed to the whole bigger picture, which seems like way too daunting?
Oh, absolutely. I think at that point, that was like a stab in the dark that was never going to happen. And we really broke it down to, right, what is it that you're missing? Is it the technical side of things, the tactical, the mental, the physical, all of those things? And if, the best opening batter in the world, where would they be on that? And where are you at the moment? And right, if you're a 2 out of 10 on the mental skills, how do you get to a 4? How do you get to a 5? And all those kind of things, and just really breaking it down into I was working for a charity called Chance to Shine at the time, which is goes into schools and gets cricket into state schools. And it even was like, is having 3 biscuits at lunch with the teachers at the school really going to help you on your, your physical and fitness goals to get there to be the best opening batter in the world? It was really all of that. And we just checked in every kind of week on what things have I ticked off this week that are going to be incremental to make me better.
Was that a bit of a game changer then, the realization that actually if you took these things incrementally and step by step, as opposed to trying to have this, big dream and big goal, then actually you could achieve success little by little, as opposed to having that bigger view?
Yeah, so I think at that time, it still was so out of reach. I don't think I ever thought I actually would achieve it. I certainly kind of wanted to. That was the motivation. That was the kind of guiding North Star in a way. But I didn't actually probably have that belief in myself, and almost someone else going along with me on the journey kind of gave me that belief. And it was still a very long way off and a lot of things you can't control. But I think for me, it really did kind of hone into, I think the big one was looking in the mirror and going, this is what's letting you down at the moment. This is where you're not good enough. And I think before that, I'd probably been trying to protect myself, trying to go like, no, it will happen, it will happen. And not actually go, right, let's have a long, hard look at yourself here. What do you need to do better? And be a bit tougher on myself in a way.
What were the things that you sort of identified with as the stuff that you struggled most with? What were the things that you think sort of were the roadblocks?
I think the big one for me was controlling my nerves. There's some games I played in those days that I can't even remember at all. And I think you could speak to most of my teammates. I have a ridiculously good memory for useless games of cricket. I can remember 10 years ago, Heather Knight scored this many runs and won the game and did this, or this person got this person out. But there's games kind of before that 2015 time where I can't remember what I did in the game. I just remember going out to bat, being a rabbit in the headlights, getting out and then going back to the pavilion. Whereas I think the big one for me was finding a way to get through those nerves, feel those feelings of anxiety, but actually still manage to do what I could do everywhere else. And almost talking about settling on the pitch, getting to a position where you could calm yourself down and settle into a game. Whereas almost what was happening was I was going so much quicker and spiraling, and I'd already be out before I could even have any impact or any kind of calm thoughts on the game.
Is it completely different to the novice? Is it completely different playing for England than it is for doing almost anything else?
Well, it was at that time. Nowadays, it's not so much. I think with the 100, with county cricket, you do have crowds, you do have stadium announcers, you do have a lot more pressure on you the whole time, a lot more interest with interviews and all of those things. But back then, it pretty much was your family came to watch you play for Kent versus Sussex, and that was it. And there certainly wouldn't even be a write-up in a newspaper. And then you go to the West Indies and you're singing the national anthem against some of the best players in the world with cameras there and all sorts of things. So I think that was quite a big eye-opener in a way.
So the 2017 World Cup, which, like you said, you identified as that sort of defining moment because it led to so much more as well. And like you say, it was something that you thought would never happen sort of 2 years out from that. He scored like 410 runs. I mean, who does that? I mean, that must have been the most astonishing sort of feeling coming off the back of that. But just heading into that series, just take yourself back to that place. How did it feel heading in? Because like you say, 2 years out, you didn't feel like it was even going to be on the cards. But then you were on the eve of, stepping up and doing what you have to do for England in that context. What did you feel like then? Were the nerves there, or had you managed them?
Oh, the nerves were massively there. So in 2016, kind of February time, we got a new coach come in called Mark Robinson, who was obviously with us for the World Cup. And we lost in a semi-final of the T20 World Cup in India. And we came back from there. And he quite rightly said that we weren't fit enough and we weren't good enough under pressure in that semi-final, and that's kind of why we lost. And we were going to go on this journey and try and put it right for the home World Cup in 2017. And our captain at the time, Charlotte Edwards, who's obviously now my England England coach, sorry, she was my previous captain. She kind of retired, so we actually became a really young, inexperienced team. Heather Knight took over, and just everything for the next 12 months became we're going to go on this journey and we want to sing our team song at Lord's. That was how we described it to everyone. And I think what we learned that year was it was absolutely fine to feel whatever we felt. So if we felt nervous, that's okay. But we were going to go and do it anyway, and go and do our own thing, and play our way anyway.
In a way, was the sort of expectation off because of the fact you were this young squad, and there wasn't the pressure in the same way as there would have been with Charlotte and co in the mix?
I don't think so. I think there's always pressure on the home team in a World Cup, and I also think the British media for sports team we're almost the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. And I think probably the last couple of years we've had even more kind of spotlight and scrutiny. I think sometimes that's very valid in terms of probably the investment that we've had, but I do think a little bit sometimes it is, we build people up to tear them down sometimes. So I do feel like we had a lot of expectation going in, but not from internally. I think internally we all knew probably, we were hoping this was the World Cup for us, but we also knew that there was other things on the horizon that we could keep growing into. And for us, it was all about that, improving and growing. And I think we used to have a saying of, does it make the boat go faster? Which obviously I'm sure Ben would know all about.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we stole lots of things. We stole the man in the arena quote was the one we always went back to, of we were only going to listen to those who had gone in the arena and, got their hands dirty type of thing. So yeah, lots of quotes and lots of things we kind of would run towards the danger. That was a big one. It was no matter how you feel, you run towards the danger. But hey, it worked, so we'll go.
But I feel like you're sort of describing something which feels like a very sort of galvanized group of women. Is that what it felt like going in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it felt like, well, we spoke about it being a sisterhood. We spoke about it being together. We probably spent just as much time talking as we did on our skills. I knew exactly what to say to get the best out of my opening partner, Lauren Winfield-Hill, and she knew exactly what to say to me. And she knew that on a day where I was more nervous, I'd probably be putting an absolute front on, strutting about. They used to joke about my strut. I'd strut about, but it was completely fake. And she knew that maybe I'd needed it a bit more like love and TLC that day, whereas I knew maybe she'd get a bit too in the logistics of the game, and I'd be like, no, come on, like let's just play on instinct a bit more, and we'd bounce off each other in that way. And it was the same thing throughout the batting order, the same thing with the bowlers. Everyone had their person almost looking out for each other and knew how to maybe change your style to get the best out of someone else. And I think that kind of team aspect for me is something that really struck me, that, for me, a good team is more than the sum of its parts. And cricket is an incredibly individual game. It's a sport, it's a team sport played by individuals. You can, if one person has an amazing day in a T20, they can win the game single-handedly. But actually, the teams that I've played in that have had success, it's certainly something about the culture empowers and gets more out of the individuals than they probably believe is capable of themselves by giving to the team, I think, anyway.
So tell me what it's like to score that crazy number of runs. I mean, what did that all feel like? You must have felt invincible.
Well, actually, I think this is pretty much the story of me, is that I am better in adversity. And whenever I have a point to prove, I kind of prove it. Because I actually started terribly and I didn't get any runs in like the first two or three games. I had a bit of a meltdown actually at training where I was in tears for about half an hour. Because obviously, like I'd said, I'd gone on this journey of didn't think I was good enough, wasn't really sure. The year before, so when Charlotte did retire, I got the opening slot and did really well against Pakistan. Did pretty well away against the West Indies and Sri Lanka. But those teams are kind of, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th in the world. They're not the Australia, the India, the New Zealand, South Africa, who are the top teams. So we as a team had done really well. I'd done pretty well that year. I'd had a good year. And it was a bit of, are we going to make it against the best teams in the world? So actually when I failed the first few times, there was that little person on the shoulder going, well, people have said, are you really as good as you've been the last year? But that was kind of, I had a bit of a meltdown, and luckily I had some really good coaches around, really good players around going, no, come on, trust the process. You've done all the work. And then, got a really big score against South Africa, with my good friend Sarah Taylor at the other end. I think we maybe broke a record for the second wicket stand or something. We both got 100, and I didn't really look back from there. Once I'd kind of got into the tournament, I kind of had worked it all out, trusted the process, and just managed to start again every game. And I actually owe Nat Sivabrunt that trophy, actually, because there was an Indian lady called Mitali Raj, scored 109 runs, and she actually got run out in the final. And if she'd have made that run, she'd have got 110 and probably would have got player of the tournament, but Nat Sivabrunt ran her out. So I'm very thankful to Nat.
There you go. That's the sisterhood for you, well and truly at work. But when you think back, we talked about the fact that you felt 2 years prior you weren't even ready for that. When you go way back to when you were a kid just growing up, and starting on your journey of figuring things out left, right, and centre as a family unit, and obviously you had a brother and a father that loved their sport as well and loved cricket, and then you ended up involved right in a local match, purely because you could spot that your numbers were better than the alternatives who was down to bat and bowl. So just tell us how that came about and how that sort of was the genesis, I guess, of everything that came after.
Yes, well, I think I probably need to say that I'm obviously the second child. That probably sums up a lot of things. Secondly, my dad in our wedding speech used the word headstrong about 10 times to describe me. So it probably gives you an idea of what an 8-year-old Tammy was like. Very much. Well, I actually was very small. I'm still obviously very short, but I had a lot of food allergies as a kid and kind of didn't grow very well. I was always kind of on the paediatrician's watch list as a failure to thrive, apparently I was. But my mum put me into gymnastics, and that really kind of helped get me a lot stronger. But I think that's where my kind of oh, come on, I'll show you spirit comes from. I hated kind of the fuss that all of my food allergies and all of that would cause. So I remember going to school on my first day, and I was too short to reach the peg for my coat, and the teacher's starting to charge over, and I just go, no, don't worry. I just climb up and put it on because I just hated the fuss. So again, I think when it came to, my dad's getting down this list, and it's summer holidays, so there's a lot of people, oh no, sorry, we're on holiday. And I'd obviously been playing in the back garden or with the lads at the cricket club with a softball for quite a long time, and I'd tagged along to a couple of summer camps that my brother had been on for cricket. So I knew how to hold a bat, and I thought I knew how to bowl, but it turns out I still can't bowl. But yeah, so Dad's trying to get this team out, and I just go, but Dad, I can bat better than him and I can bowl better than him. So that poor boy must have been terrible at bowling if I thought I was better than him. But I was like, why can't I play? And I think a lot said about my older brother and my dad of why I got into cricket, but I think a lot of my character's down to my mum, as all the women in our family are strong when they need to be. And she just went, well, she's right. Why can't she play? And my dad, being the dutiful husband, did as he was told and let me play.
What did it give you in terms of sort of confidence and self-belief to sort of have been that kid who by day is having to sort of, like you say, overcome these different sort of obstacles and hurdles that you've got with regards to these food allergies and constantly having that to manage. And then this sort of freedom with sport that you get from sport, what did that give you as a young child that you think that you've been able to really kick on in adulthood?
I think it's many things. I think for me it was at kind of 8, 9, there's not a lot between boys and girls. And for me, I was a massive tomboy, so I just wanted to be seen as one of them. And with a cricket bat in my hand, I almost was the same as them. And a lot of the time I was very lucky in my own team. Obviously, my older brother was there, but we had 3 really close family friends that were also in that team, sort of in and around Michael's age. One of them's a couple of years older than me. So if there was ever anything about we shouldn't have a girl playing, they were just like, absolutely not. Tammy's one of the best players, or we don't care. She's playing. She's one of us. So I was very lucky from within my team. I was so well supported, and obviously my dad was a coach, mum was the manager, so it was good there. But there's so many times we turn up and it would be, oh, they must be rubbish. They've got a girl playing, and that just spurred me on. And the next time, you always play home and away. So they'd come to us and be like, oh no, that girl's playing again. They're going to be really good. And I just loved that proving them wrong, proving that girls can do it. Whenever anyone said like girls don't play cricket, I was like, well, this one does, and watch. And I think that's still something for me that I love doing. It's sort of like, you know, tell me I can't do something, I'll just like, go on then, come watch me do it.
Look, when I grew up, I was always the littlest person in my class, and I was always struggling with those, you know, various different things whereby I loved playing tennis. I was quite good at tennis, and then everyone else grew around me, and that ceased to become, you know, so much of a strong point. But it was something that my mum, bit similar to your mum, always sort of drilled in, was like, if you can do sport, if you're good at sport, if you focus on sport, it'll give you this thing, like this confidence, this camaraderie, teamwork, like all those things that will feel very galvanizing and feel very, you know, will really just help build your confidence. And that definitely helped me. So I can see how this sort of does the same thing. Your mum took it to the next degree because she turns you into a gymnastics champion. So what was the thinking? You mentioned it a moment ago, the thinking behind that. What was her belief system behind that? And why was it so important that you went on that journey as well?
Well, yeah, I think she'd take me like round the supermarket, and I couldn't even walk down the aisles without wanting a cuddle carry. God, I'm embarrassing myself here, but a cuddle carry. Even at the age of like 3, I was still in like a pushchair. Well, 3 or 4, I was in a pushchair. And she was a teaching assistant actually. So I think one of the teachers ran the local gymnastics club and said, well, why doesn't she come down? Like it'd be good to build some muscle, get her, you know, using her body a bit better. And yeah, I went down and I started at one gym that did kind of the type of gymnastics you see in the Olympics. But I ended up swapping to a different gym where it's not the Olympic gymnastic stuff, even though that was the dream for a while, was to be an Olympic gymnast. It was more like pairs and trios, which I think kind of suited me a lot better, that kind of relying on a team or creating a team, and a bit of the performance aspect, I think, in a way. I think in another life I probably would have loved to be on the stage or something. I can't sing, but you know, acting, I think sport and acting, I think, is actually a lot closer than you realize, in terms of you have to put on a performance, and sometimes the what you project out when you're on the pitch is not necessarily what is, you know, when you're at home in front of the fire. It's not the same.
It's funny that
people.
You say that, because when you said earlier about how the strut and the walk and everything else was all just bit put on, and I thought, oh, that sort of screams of like having an alter ego, like almost you sort of manifest this particular person, and then it happens, you know, on the big stages. But presumably that's super helpful for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we spoke at length in that period of time where it was like, do I give up or do I try and become the best opening batter in the world? We spoke about faking it until you're making it. And we spoke at length about how the best players in the world just exude confidence, and, you know, some of that's maybe even bordering on arrogance. And I was like, well, I don't feel confident in what I'm doing. But why can't you pretend you are? Why can't you put this front on that you are very confident? And a lot of it is, you know, it is a performance. It's me versus the bowler versus the opposition. And if they're looking at me and I'm looking nervous or looking annoyed at myself for missing out on something or whatever it is, like they're halfway to winning the battle. So for me, it's, well, I'm going to make sure you can't tell what's going on in here. And I'm, you know, it's definitely me versus you, and I'm going to win this one. And faking it till you make it became a bit of a motto for quite some time.
Is that quite exhausting though? Do you fake it until you make it, and then once you will ultimately, hopefully the goal is to make it, which you then well and truly went and did. But how important is it to actually do that? Because otherwise that can get really tiring, right? You've got a lot going on physically, mentally to deal with in terms of the game itself. And then there's that other piece of work, which is, you know, out-psyching the competitor in different ways.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there used to be times with England and Australia where it was constant. It was game face on in the lift, in the hotel, the day before a game. It was, oh, we've both got the gym at the same time. Right, I'm putting some more weight on today, like trying to make sure they know. Like, and you just can't do that all the time. I mean, there's been times where you just end up completely burnt out. And I think the more that the game's developing, the more cricket there is, the more you've got to realise when you can turn that on and when you can turn it off. And I think that's what the best players manage to do, is they almost, you know, can control their energy. They know when they need to turn it up. And I'm someone that does need that fire to get in the battle, to really fire up for it. But I can't do that day in, day out without being absolutely exhausted by the end of a tour.
I mean, you mentioned it just there, but can we talk about how much cricket there is? There's absolutely stacks of the stuff. There's a load of international stuff. There's one day, there's test, there's like T20, there's the 100. There's so much going on. I mean, what does your year now look like compared to what it used to look like?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, it was pretty much one tour in the winter, one tour in the summer, and a lot of training camps up at Loughborough University. But now it's almost non-stop. You've got the franchise leagues, which obviously that's what the 100 is. That's what the women's IPL is. The Big Bash in Australia, or you've got international cricket. So if you do it all, it's almost year round. We've obviously just come off a busy international summer with the West Indies and India coming over, and then you get pretty much a week off. But we had fitness testing in the middle of that, and we've come straight to the 100. Then we'll get a week off after that and go into our World Cup prep camp. We've got a 50 over World Cup in India again. So yeah, it's all year round, and you don't get too much downtime or time off anymore. But it's really good to see where it's going, and I think there's just going to be more and more opportunities for more and more players, not just the kind of top end, those best players. I think it's starting to spread out with domestic cricket as well, but starting to learn how to recover and look after yourself, look after your mind is really important.
Yeah, exactly. How do you best do that? Because like you say, with so much going on, such a packed schedule, and also so much traveling, because that's the other thing that gets in the way of all of this is, sitting on a coach, sitting on a bus, on a train, on a plane. There's a lot of that going on. So how do you manage, especially as somebody that's now becoming more and more of the statesperson of the game? How do you keep yourself well looked after? What are you doing? What's your secret, Tammy?
I have to be honest, that's the nicest way anyone's said you're old in a very long time. I have one journalist.
I didn't say that. I did not say it.
There's one journalist, I swear, that's tried to retire me every time I've done an interview with them for the last 2 years. And they've actually started
what you're going to go and do?
apologising.
You're going to go and prove them wrong, because that's the person you are. That's what I've figured out.
Yeah, I did get a bit defensive on that interview. But anyway, I think it's really individual. It's finding what's right for you. I think you're right in being the statesperson. I need to spend more time on recovery. We're lucky we stay at some brilliant places. So getting in pools, in saunas, hot tubs. I'm not a big one for ice baths. I don't mind a colder bath, but I've also got a load of kind of recovery tools these days. A back heater and compression legs, you name it, I've probably got it. But I think that some of the most simple things you can do is just nutrition and sleep, and look after those things, and look after your stretching, those types of things to look after your body. I think the mind is the tougher part for me. I think if someone could still give me an on and off switch, I think I'd happily take that one. I think it's something I've got a lot better at over the years, but I am very much an all or nothing type. So while I'm here with the Welsh Fire, I'm just consistently thinking about what could we do better. And as I'm captain, I'm thinking about, is that person okay today? They seemed a bit quiet. Do I need to check in with them? Or, that one had a tough day, or, can we kind of harness this, that and the other? And it gets a bit exhausting. And my husband has to remind me to, another cliche for you, but fit your own gas mask first before you help others. Because if I don't have any energy or any mental capacity to help myself, then I'm not going to be much cop to anyone else.
Has there ever been a better name for you as the captain of a side than the Welsh Fire? It feels like that's absolutely, you're made for each other. But I mean, that tournament, that series has elevated women's cricket in a crazy, crazy way. The business of sport is becoming very clear now, isn't it? When you look at these franchises also being sold off, just how big the business of sport is, especially within cricket.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when we won the World Cup in 2017, that got women's cricket to be taken seriously within cricket in England and Wales. As I'm Welsh Fire, I always try and say England and Wales. But I think the 100 is what's really kind of driven it forward in the last kind of 4 and 5 years. That's where the domestic game is just expanding. I think, we've spoken for a long time about moving towards equality within the game, whether that's from equality of opportunity, equality of provision, the level of coaching, all of those kind of things, and also eventually salary. But I actually think now it's kind of more of a viable option because of the fact that it is a business. And, I was commentating on the game down at Southampton for Southern Brave yesterday, and they got yet another record crowd for the women's game. And then, the men's game, there was only another few hundred turned up. So people are coming for both games. They see it as one entity, the men's and the women's together. And I think that no other league in the world has been able to do that just yet in cricket, to showcase men and women alongside each other. And I can't wait. I keep pushing for the women to have the prime time slot half the time. We'll get there. We will get there. But for me, maybe it's too late to kind of see us fully equal while I'm on the pitch. But when I finish, I'm hoping I can get behind a desk and drive that from behind the rope.
I'm not trying to be that journalist who tries to retire you, but it would be interesting to know what you are planning in the next life. And I guess this is the thing, when you know so much about your subject and you're so keen to further the cause of it, it's wonderful to have people like you, people like Charlotte Edwards, always forever in the mix of this, because you're constantly pioneering and campaigning for this piece to become a reality. When you think that you were one of the first Centrally England contracted players, I mean, you must have seen, it must be so excited by where it is now. I know you still say it's got a long way to go, but it must be really exciting to see where the game's at. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, it's a world away from when I started. And I think it's, I do wish I was younger now, and I would get to experience what these young girls have got now. But I think in a way that's made me more grateful for what I have experienced and for where the game is now. And I've probably got quite a well-rounded view on it all. But I think there's so many ambassadors for the game. I think you mentioned Charlotte Edwards, but we've got a number of girls from those first contracted girls now in coaching. Danny Hazel, Laura Marsh, they're coaching at counties. Lydia Greenway's ended up head selector. I think some at the moment, Heather Knight, Kate Cross, are such amazing advocates for the game that when us three retire and those women that have already gone before kind of really get stuck into the game, I just think it's going to just keep accelerating even quicker. And it's something I'm really passionate about. I'm actually doing a master's in leadership in sport alongside my playing commitments at the moment. Typical me, trying to take on too many things. But I think for me, it's what I'm passionate about. I think, I want a young girl and a young boy to be able to have exactly the same opportunities from the age of 5 all the way through cricket, and not have to travel an hour to their home ground, which is what I had to do when I was 11, to go and play women's cricket, because you have to play women's cricket to try and get anywhere in women's cricket. But it was an hour's drive. If I didn't have such dedicated parents and them being able to financially pay for that, I wouldn't have made it. And I think that for me, that's what drives me now is, yes, the top end of the game is starting to really take off and look after itself, but we've got to look after the whole pyramid of the game. Whether that's people playing on the pitch or officiating or on boards or committees at cricket clubs. We've got to just kind of keep pushing the women's game as much as possible.
Well, you know what they say, ask a busy person and it will get done. So there you go, you're fine. You can just juggle, spin plates, that kind of thing. The T20 World Cup, though, are you going to be there? Are you going to be there for your side, playing, still, in a position of leadership?
Oh, absolutely. Hope so. Doing my best to be in and around that squad, in the team. Obviously just broke back into the T20 squad after a couple of years out of it. And then, when Nat Sivabrunt was injured, getting the opportunity to captain against India, those 3 games was just amazing. And knowing that the World Cup's sort of 11 months away now and in England again, who knows, it could be another magic moment. I think since 2017, I think there's probably been a few of us kind of desperate for that feeling again. And almost, I think I heard Leah Williamson after her winning the Euros, she said she had a couple of years where she felt like she was just chasing that feeling of winning the Euros, and that she felt she may never feel it again. And I just resonated with that so much. We probably had a good few years of just wanting that feeling again. And, to see that on the horizon there is a pretty big opportunity, I think if that doesn't motivate you, then I should stop right now.
There's something really synergistic about the England women's team and the England cricket team, I think, in terms of in terms of what you're both up to and what you're both delivering on. Do you feel that quite keenly? Because you look at your counterparts over at football, and there's a real similarity between them and you.
Absolutely, and I actually would throw in the Red Roses, the rugby team as well. My husband's mad keen on rugby, and actually a couple of them once helped us out in a club game. We had Amy Cockayne come and play cricket with us and try and catch a cricket ball like a rugby ball. It was quite funny. But no, I think the parallels in all women's team sport in England or in the UK at the moment is really similar, and I just think how cool would it be if we got them all around a table and got them all sharing knowledge.
Let's do a
podcast.
Experience. We can do a podcast with all of you greats and goods of female sport. Let's do it.
I was actually thinking about my dissertation for my master's. I'm like, I'm gonna make that happen. Leaders of women's team sport at the moment.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll televise it. I'll ask the questions and you write it up after.
But no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think there's so much synergy, but I feel like it's a whole women's sport movement is just absolutely, galvanizing and really gaining traction. And all the teams are kind of doing the country really proud in quite a space that's kind of we've had to push for, I reckon, over the last 20 years, and it's almost time to emerge into it.
Yeah, we'll keep pushing. Tammy, thanks so much. It's been brilliant to chat to you, and I look forward to our massive podcast.
Can't wait.